on Wednesday, May 7th, and I would like to call this special board meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Will?
Yes.
Mrs. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson? Yes. Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes. Please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Will? Yes. Mrs. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes. Do we have any public participation?
We do not.
Okay, I would just like to thank everybody for coming this afternoon. We're here because the superintendent recently brought forward a proposal to us to offer full-day tuition-free kindergarten starting in the 25 to 26 school year. Naturally, the board was super excited about this because we know how impactful full-day kindergarten can be for everyone, especially when it comes to early literacy and long-term student success. And making it accessible to families is something that we've always been very interested in. But at the same time, we've had to have a lot of difficult financial discussions this year and over the past few years. And we've been very public about our concerns about sustainability and state funding. So before we move forward, we wanted to take a step back and have this conversation in front of the community to understand exactly how this proposal became financially viable and what the short and long-term implications of this may be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Spicer.
Thank you, President Mason, members of the board, community, thank you for being here, and those watching live and recorded. So how did we get here? I think what's really important for us is that it's been a vision for over 2 years to offer all-day kindergarten for all students, but knowing that it wasn't a viable option for us. And then each and every year, what we do as a central office team with the help of Lisa Hare, our EMIS director, we take a look at our student numbers, our enrollment, our staffing, and we try to right-size our staffing. And as we were looking at that, once again, and as I said, as we do every year, but certainly almost daily this past year, we looked at the numbers, and our enrollment would indicate that there's the potential to have all-day kindergarten for all with the current staffing that we had, so no additional staff. And in the past, it has always been that we would have to add staff, and that's what really made it financially not a possibility. So with that, that's how we got to the potential. This was a central office team discussion, Treasurer Ackerman part of that as well. And that's how we kind of got to the proposal of the potential for this to could happen. So let's go back here, Steve. Try it again. There we go. All right, so I think that what's important for us to look at is that our current enrollment projections, this is 2020 up through now. So we're at about 65% of our students are enrolled in all-day kindergarten. In the past, we have given approximately $111,000 in scholarships per year. So this past year, we gave and allowed families to have the scholarship based on free and reduced lunch. But I think that the most important statistic up here is that 90.5% families in Ohio are enrolled in all-day kindergarten for all students. And that's what we believe the data will show is that there's a better academic opportunity for our students and families, but also other benefits as well. So we're going to jump into a little bit of our own data. So I'm going to have Kelly Ellison come up and we're going to talk a little bit about M-Class Dibbles.
So in that last slide real quick though, John,
Yes, sir.
the other side of those percentages are half day, right? So you're saying like 65% of our
Correct.
enrollment is full day, and then we would have the rest to make up that be half day. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good afternoon. So the state of Ohio 2 years ago required a universal screener. Sorry for the. For us to adopt a universal screener. It was originally for a dyslexia screener, but it's utilized for more than that, and we chose as a district M-Class Dibbles. And M-Class Dibbles is really that early literacy screening. We give it to all K-3 students, and we analyze their data to see if they're on track, off track. That's one of the first things we look for, and then we start analyzing what are the areas that we need to touch base on and grow our students. So we utilize it for screening, progress monitoring, et cetera. And if we look at last year, which was our first year of full implementation, as some percentages were mentioned, last year 58% of our kiddos were in all day and 42 were in half day. And beginning of the year, last year, 56% of our kiddos that were starting with us were on track, and 37% were not on track that were in half day. And when we ended the year last year, 87% of our students were on track and where they needed to be, and in half day, 60% were on track. So we knew going into this school year that as first graders, we were going to need to do some intervention for those kiddos that were not on track. And you can see the level of progress. So this year, okay. For 24-25, we don't have end of year data, but you can see we're progressing at a wonderful rate as we've changed some interventions. But all day kindergarten, we're at about 67%, or we were to start the school year. And for our kids in all day, they started the year at 54%, and already at mid-year, our all day students were at 90%. So excited to see where we end the year. And then half day, we started the year at 32% that were on track where they should be, and by mid-year, we were at 73%. So we're making progress, but not ending the year at a rate where we would like to see 100% of our kids on track. So, any questions for me about that?
All right. So we did offer a thought exchange to the community. I'm going to let Parker Brown come and speak to us a little bit about the thought exchange and what we found through the thought exchange.
Yeah, so, is it still on? Okay. We had 374 participants in our thought exchange. We had 254 unique thoughts from those participants. Now you can rate all of these individual thoughts, which is how there's a difference of the number there. And we ran that for about 7 days, so April 30th through May 6th is when we ran this. And go on to the next slide. So I just wanted to start with our lowest rated thoughts. I try to kind of group them together. Technically, a lot of our lowest rated thoughts are a lot of individual, very specific to them thoughts. So I try to kind of group a lot of those ideas into a few key bullet points here, which is families are saying that $5,000 is a fair price, still cheaper than daycare is what some of our families are saying. Given that the voucher program, all-day programs elsewhere are more appealing than paying extra on top of existing taxes to Milford. And that nearby districts, so Loveland, West Claremont, Goshen, offer tuition-free all-day kindergarten. Those are some of our lowest rated ones, but still thoughts I thought we should elevate and bring up to the board. So these were our highest rated thoughts. Same ordeal, try to kind of group some of them together. So the source of funding would need to be clearly stated and repeated often was our highest rated topic. This is families understand this, and they understand that we need to be communicating this effectively. It's conflicting given the district says they are needing financial cuts. However, I feel wonderful resource for families. Research has shown that students who attend all-day kindergarten enter first grade more prepared academically. How can the district offer free kindergarten at this point? What about increased busing? Which is it? Does the district have enough money or not? Thank you for exploring this option. So I kind of took it out a little bit on the side. So our families and our community understand the benefits of kindergarten. They have the desire for equitable access for kindergarten. There's a need for a deep understanding of funds and concerns over conflicting messages over this past school year. So just kind of the high-level summary that thought exchange does. If we can do the next slide. Responses to Milford Exemptus Village School District proposal for tuition-free all-day kindergarten indicates support and concern. Many respondents emphasize the financial burden the current tuition places on families. So there's an understanding that the community has and the desire for all-day kindergarten that we saw with the data and we're seeing with the communications and the feedback that we're getting. The largest piece is just understanding the funding and the sudden change from $5,000 tuition increase to now all day, if that's an option we want to explore.
Thank you, Parker. Treasurer Ackerman.
Treasurer Ackerman. All right. Well, I don't want this to turn into nothing but a financial discussion. Obviously, we're here for bigger and better reasons. But just to lay things out, either option, whether you go with tuition or no tuition, we are not making money on this. We are still losing money. It just means that tuition isn't covering all the expenditures. But what's really important, especially as I dive into this data, is the fact that in the last 2 years, enrollment is down 136 students. In the last 4 years, 38% or 179 students. You start to see that non-payment is going up. What scares me is if we raise tuition from $3,500 to $5,000, those two things will continue. Why is that a big deal? Right now, we're on the guarantee with the Fair School Funding Plan. So we are guaranteed a certain amount of money based on fiscal year 20 numbers. The governor's proposal was going to take the guarantee away from us because enrollment is going down. It has been placed back into the biennium budget by the House. Hopefully it will stay there, it should, but in 2 years it will go away. If we don't start looking at a way to increase enrollment, whatever possibility we have of a guarantee is gone. And we will only be funded for what we currently have, or as I like to say, butts and seats. So that could cost us anywhere from $1 to $2 million. So this is more of a way of, when you look at the finances, it's which part of the finances are better, even though none of them are really good, if that makes sense. One positive thing, and I know we're back on transportation, it's the fact that by eliminating midday routes, we can save an additional $150,000. I think that's a big deal. Like I said, the other part of the big deal to me is the fact that we want to start working on enrollment. We want to start working on getting our numbers up because that shows the legislators that we're doing what we're supposed to do. So,
I don't know if we have data on this, but I would venture a guess that where a student starts kindergarten has a huge impact on where they stay, or maybe you were going to talk about this later, but where they stay. While it could happen that students flip between kindergarten at one location and then come into Milford, I feel like it.
Yeah, anecdotally, you are correct. Once we lose a student, if you will, either to open enrollment or to a parochial, they never come back.
And if you're talking about the achievement level, I think it's been shown that they don't catch up with the full-day kindergarten kids until 3rd grade. So in those 3 years, they could be forming negative self-opinions about their ability to learn and their achievement.
The other thing to remember is we have a brand new building, which means we have some additional space. Not putting pressure on anyone out there, but we have spots open. So hopefully this is a way to attract some people that otherwise considered coming to Milford. So I think the whole point is yes, I'm the guy that's supposed to be telling you where we're not making money and what we need to do about it, but I don't want to sit here and tell you that we should take tuition from $5,000 to $8,500 to cover our loss and expenditures. I want to sit here and tell you that we need to be doing the right thing for kids. And the right thing for kids is to think about all-day kindergarten at no cost to the taxpayers. No
Have-
additional cost, I apologize.
Do we know where the state, I know the state has been receiving a lot of pressure to cover all-day kindergarten. Do we know where?
Well, technically, that's a good point. So in the past, how this works, when you receive tuition, you only get credit for half a student. When you don't receive tuition, you get credit for a full student. So in easy numbers, if we have 300 students, we only get credit for 150 of them. By going to full-day kindergarten, not charging tuition, we automatically have an increase of 150 students, which will help us as we move forward with the fair funding plan or whatever else they decide that they're going to create to fund schools.
Does this mean students in a neighboring district could open enroll, they would also get full-day kindergarten if we had spots?
If we have spots.
If we have spots.
Do you have more after this?
Actually, I do not, only other than to potentially put some of our elementary principals on the spot if they want to speak about what all-day kindergarten might mean to them. But that would be it. I would like to just open it up for dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, you guys know that I'm, and I think that you all are probably with me on this, but I'm the biggest, opponent about the voucher system, right? It's something I speak about very, very frequently. So the fact that in that thought exchange that comes up, I mean, so if you go to a private school, the state does give that school money for all-day kindergarten. They do not give public schools money beyond a half a day. So as we cannot shy away from the competition for our community to continue to compete with private school vouchers, which are, grossly even getting more significant attention in the biennial budget, that's a hard thing not to overlook. Like when I look at this plan, when you take into account the fact that we're on the guarantee, it's an investment, right? It's a fair way to look at it, right?
Sure.
I mean, we know we're going to be able to offset some of it with reducing midday busing. We know that the district has done other things that we can talk about here this year to save money, things that we can track, like the reduction to busing. It is, we know that that's not good. We know that families are going to struggle to get the kids there, but we can track it. We can see how we can help people get kids to the school. We can see if it's increasing people coming late and things like that. And then we can do the same thing with what we did with sports and our spendings down on what's the line item?
Purchase services?
Purchase services, which is also a cut that we made last year, the 15%, which is showing money coming down. So because as I was thinking about this, I think about that full story as well, right? Of like, the levies failed twice. We had to decide on many different cuts, and we know that those all make a negative impact. But the one thing that we have to continue to do is increase enrollment. We got to keep families here. We got to get kids signing up for kindergarten here in Milford as the private school, situation will continue to grow. Now, I think that there's going to be I hope there's a swing back with the state that will pay for all-day kindergarten. But in the meantime, I think we do have to take steps to keep the families here. And I can speak from experience. My daughter did half-day this year, and I know that she was one of the ones that scored lower on the dibbles, right, versus other kids that were, there at all-day kindergarten. So I also know that there's a huge learning advantage for the kids, and I think the science, kind of all the studies flesh out that they're actually at an advantage all the way up until the third grade, to where it finally levels out of kids in all day versus half a day. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. From the perspective, I see this more as an investment. And when I look at the $111,000 that was put up there by the scholarships that we're trying not to do this year, you know, it's important for people to realize, like, I see that as probably being 111,000 of debt to families. It's the, you know, you can, you know, when you accrue school debt over the years up until you get to the end, and the school is constantly doing things to try to get that paid for, whether it's through help from our local partners, or, you know, people eventually find a way to pay it. But, you know, if people get a spot in kindergarten, they pay, and then they start to have financial trouble, you know, that $111,000 could just amount to debt to a family, and that's very, very stressful. And also just, there's other things that would play into that impact our family. So, so that's why it's like, that's the way I'm kind of looking at this. It's an investment, and you got to kind of look at it in that way. It's just, how much is the investment? And it's like, when you take away the debt part, the 111,000, you take away the fact that there's going to be more debt incurred by families that can't pay it this year, that we don't necessarily get back right away. And it really is a loss in enrollment, because when we see that signaled in the governor's part of the budget before it even got changed in the biannual budget, we know that that's going to be an important part. So as we continue to you know, be an excellent district, we have to continue to take the steps to get the enrollment up, and there's not many ways to do it. But those are my thoughts. So
I know we didn't want to make this into a financial discussion, but I do have some financial questions.
Sure.
So when we all got together in December for our special meeting, we were told, okay, we can't afford to offer it for free. I'm just wondering what's changed since then that makes this financially possible, specifically like what data. I know you talked about taking away the bus routes, so that's a piece of it, and then the enrollment part, is that what is specifically making up all of this difference?
I think there's a better understanding now that in not being part of the original discussion, I'm coming in, I'm doing this internal audit, and then I'm bringing information to Mr. Spicer, and then of course to you. One thing that the district didn't understand is that with tuition, you only get credit for half a student, not a full student. So there's one. Now, granted, we're on the guarantee, but in December, we didn't know about the biennium budget yet. We didn't know that enrollment was going to be affected. We knew the guarantee was going away, but we didn't think it was going to go away until the fair funding plan was fully phased in, which would be another 2 years. When we found out that right away we could lose between $1 and $2 million, okay, we start to panic. So the easiest way, obviously, is to come back and say, what can we do to take care of this problem? The problem is enrollment's going down, and when Mrs. Harris showed us what our numbers really were in the last few years, it tells me that they're only going to get worse as you take tuition up. Also, looking at the numbers and looking at salary and benefits and of course transportation costs that are still included, you realize that those numbers are only going to go up, which means either you take tuition up or you say, and forgive me, you don't want to say this, cut your losses. I apologize for saying that, but that's not what we're doing here. But you realize, okay, this is an investment. It's an investment in our kids. It's an investment in the future. We have to do what we need to do right now to start moving forward when they do take the guarantee away, or if they don't take it away but only give it to people with increasing enrollment. Let's start now. So it's more so, if you go back to December, at that point, you know, we were more worried about the grade banded schools. We were more worried about pay to play. Tuition was already included. This district has been charging tuition for probably 15 years. At that time, you only got credit for half a student. Things have changed since then. So we're just catching up.
So that kind of leads me into another question too. So with all of the turmoil going on in the State House with the biannual budget, and things are changing, especially with this 30%
Cap.
are we confident that if we go to tuition-free all-day kindergarten, we will be able to continue that? Because I would
Sure.
hate to say, we're going to
You don't
do
go
this.
back. You don't go back. You're
Right.
right. You're right. But I still think, I don't want this to be about that. This needs to be about educating the kids and getting them started at the right time, at the right age. So if it means that we have to look at other reductions, and we will look at other reductions, we are going to be fiscally responsible. We are not going to stop doing that. And I'm going to keep saying it and saying it and saying it until you guys get tired of me saying it, but I have to say it. But we're going to continue to do that. So then we just go and we reanalyze and say, okay, where can we cut something else? What don't we need? And that's honestly the joy, why I love the 5-year forecast, doing it and budgeting, is because every day I get to say, okay, well, this worked or this didn't work, so now let's try something else. And yes, we are coming back a few years later. I don't mind taking blame for this. I wasn't here, but I'll take blame. I don't care. The point is that this is about education. And I believe it's the right thing to do.
I think, so are we friendly with, so Worthington Schools recently went through this. Do you know anybody at Worthington, John?
We can make contact with someone.
Yeah,
there,
so a few things that I saw when I was looking through this was Worthington was one of them, where they recently eliminated a $3,105 a year tuition and implemented a universal no-cost full day. So that's somebody who we can, speak with about, how their enrollment, because it was, I'm not sure if they've been through a year of it yet, so we might not get back the information for them to see how their enrollment is. Well, we'll know how it's shaping up for next year, so that's one of them. I'd also be curious to see, I know West Claremont does free, and I know they struggled with a levy yesterday, right? So I would be curious to see kind of what expenditures coming out of their general fund over there at West Claremont. So those are two places I think we can look for some data. Because, I agree with you, Emily, like I'm for I'm for this. I just want, and I know that we're saving money in lots of places, but we're only recognizing that in like purchase services, and there's a few other areas we're starting to see slope down a little bit, right, with some retirements and things like that, and obviously with the busing. But those are two places we can look. And there's a couple of states like, Colorado. I know that obviously Ohio seems to be going the opposite direction here, but there are some areas that we can look at there where it did drive a lot more full day enrollment to kindergarten. So, yeah, I think this is the problem when the state's not being very clear, because what some of you're saying, Doug, is like we know that there's some things that are going to be based off enrollment by doing. So the way I understand is there's three ways to code the financial for kindergartners. You have half day, you have full day with no tuition, and full day with tuition.
Yeah.
So when you have full day with tuition, then your enrollment automatically shows in half.
Correct.
And then as soon as you go to full day without tuition, your enrollment goes up a little bit. So part of the state not being very clear in their budget is they had the governor's budget and then now the House, and now the Senate's reviewing it, is we are trying to make decisions right now based off of limited information from them that could potentially add more kids before next year. So if we make this decision, say at the next board meeting, and there's families out there that we're going to send their kid to private school, or families that are considering moving into the area, or families that could be considering moving out of the area. I know that we have 56 seats available.
59.
59
Yep.
seats available right now to fill. So not only do you get that that full day, that all the kids being counted as half day is now full day as enrollment going up. But then you also, hopefully we would, by making this decision early enough, we could fill those seats. And that, again, we don't know what the state's going to do, but they've signified that they are going to ding schools with flat or lowering enrollment, which I guess I can't blame them for that. But what other questions do we have?
I think one of the other factors from, mentioned December to now is just the, looking at the enrollment and looking at the staff, and now looking at it, being able to determine that we don't need to add new staff in order to do it. But I think the other piece that's important is that if you do nothing and 2 new subdivisions come in and children come in, 1.2 children come in per home, you're going to add staff, right? So we staff the elementaries based on enrollment. So that's how we are now. That's like, so if there is an influx and we start to bring back, let's say 300 kids for whatever reason, everybody's flocking to Milford to come to all-day K, I mean, we would have to add staff.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And we do know on a negative side of this, since I've been very positive, we do know the state doesn't fully give us enough money for each one of our students, even as our enrollment grows, right? So that is one of the catches of, like, we want to grow our enrollment, and painfully, they don't pay us enough per student. So growing your enrollment helps you and hurts you. But if we don't have a growing enrollment, then we don't have kids for all of our schools and classes and to help our community with workers.
So we have 59 empty seats. We're fairly confident that we're not going to get more people than that to fill those seats, just based on past enrollment.
Yes, I mean, obviously we don't know until we know, but our projections would indicate that there are 59 seats, so probably 50 seats. We know of a handful of families that have left for all day specifically that would likely come back, and then the potential for more to come back. But we would have 50 seats throughout the district to offer, yes.
And we're keeping about the same teacher-student ratio as well?
It would stay the same.
Okay.
Yes, our cap is not changing based on the reductions and the efficiencies that we did in this early spring.
Just curious, I am for all-day kindergarten, but I'm curious, the children who go to half-day at the present time, what is it costing us to get those kids up with full-day kids starting grade 1 to getting 3? What's that extra cost? Do you have an idea?
That's a
Well,
great,
reading
that's a
skills.
great one. I was just getting ready to say, when Myra was talking about that, I mean, I'm going in my head, the amount of staffing that you're pouring into those students above and beyond. I mean, we could guesstimate probably 1 staff member per building, minimally.
Yeah, it's another fact that when I was looking into this, that they kind of call out some of these other studies from some of the other districts that did this were exactly that. Like, what's the cost of catching the kids up later? And also, what's the cost of kids that fall behind a grade entirely, right? So now you have another, that student is now going to get 1 whole extra year, that because they fell back a year. So there's that.
I do think, I mean, we're here for the students. I would say that's the job of a school district, is to educate students. And so when we know they do better with full-day kindergarten, we have better retention, we get to keep them in the family, they get to, I think there's a pride that comes with your school that you get from kind of spending all of that time here. So I look at it as, how might we retain every student who wants a seat, who could have a seat? We want them in our schools. And then sort of tertiary, I heard recently from a community member who sends her kids to private schools that the increase in vouchers has been really positive for them, and more kids are coming to private schools. And, this is where the piece of my heart breaks a little bit. Like, if a private school is right for you, please choose it. But I don't like that vouchers are driving families to that option with public funds.
That's the plan. I
Anything?
would,
Go ahead, Myra.
no, you go ahead.
No, I'm giving you some space here. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I haven't heard any teacher, I get contacted by a lot of teachers and staff on a regular basis because I know so many people. And the day the announcement was made to the district, my phone was blowing up with joyous texts, which is like, wow, this doesn't happen often, yay. But, and no one more than first grade teachers, you know, because they know exactly the difference that's gonna make quickly. So, if it's possible to do, I don't know how we would not do it.
Well, I think too, adding to that, it would be really interesting to track the changes, like once we move to full day, to see how our students are improving, what is the difference between their literacy skills. Just take a look at all of those numbers and see how different it is with full day, everybody at full day versus our half and half system that we have right now.
Yeah, and some other things that, you know, it opens up the time for the parents, right, with the kids being at kindergarten, full day, you know, so it gives them more opportunity to kind of volunteer if they want or participate with the kindergarten class.
And also, if you lose busing, I kept thinking the whole time, if I was a kindergarten, a half-day parent, I might as well just sit in the parking lot
Yeah.
when I drop them off and pick them up at lunchtime.
Yeah, and it, you know, beyond the actual learning piece, the social learning is so much better with full day, so we've kind of experienced that too this year. Does any of the principals want to speak? I think we should let the principals speak and then take some questions from people that decided to be here. Is that okay with the board?
Yeah.
Okay, does any principal?
Melissa Garaher wants to, apparently.
All right, she's up.
She's going to step up to the
Was she
microphone.
voluntold?
podium.
No, I
Voluntold.
saw.
Sarah
She
Greb is
volunteered.
next. No, I'm kidding. Only if you want to.
I can speak from having been an assistant principal at an all-day kindergarten center of almost 600 students of the benefits of all-day kindergarten. Sometimes I think there's hesitation from families who are interested in half-day, that it's going to be too much for the kids. I actually think that it's quite the opposite. They get into a routine more quickly. They're able to access some of the resources that we have at school that we wouldn't already. If they are maybe behind, they can also have additional intervention time. So some of our full-day kindergartners are able to do smaller doses of intervention, but twice a day versus a longer amount of time. So when you have those kids who maybe struggle a little bit more with attention, they can go and visit with someone for 10 minutes twice a day rather than 20 minutes once a day. I've definitely seen the social benefits, being able to be in a building where we have purposeful play. They have a longer opportunity to engage in that purposeful play time, and also the unified arts. So our half-day kindergartners don't get that exposure to art, music, and PE, and I think full-day kindergarten allows for that, and it allows for our kiddos to have some strengths in different areas than just academics. And again, it ties in that social piece. Art, music, and PE are a lot of social aspects, and I think that it really does wonders for all of our kids to have that equal opportunity. Many of our underprivileged families that cannot afford all-day kindergarten really need that exposure. They oftentimes don't have the opportunities outside of school to expose themselves to those social situations, and so being able to do that during the day more is very beneficial to them.
Thank you. I like it.
We're all saying
Tom Wilson. I knew he would do it. Thank you, Tom.
I piggyback with a lot of what Melissa said, but also, again, it comes to me a lot for the equitable piece. I know I was talking to Josh Kaufman the other day. I think he told me, and again, kind of looking at it from the band perspective and moving into the middle school, the sixth grade, I think their band numbers are almost, I want to say triple in band and choir. You know, again, we have sixth grade choir that we're, I don't know. Sorry about that. So going back to kind of what I was saying, so talking to Josh and just seeing the increase of access at our junior middle school now for our sixth graders. I know we all have choir. My choirs ranged from 5 kids to 20 kids, and it's all about having access. And I feel like with going to the all-day piece, it opens access for everybody. When I look at my list right now of potential full days, and I'm looking at them, thinking about the $5,000, I'm kind of going through my mind, well, who's not going to be able to afford this, and how that's going to change. When I look at my half-day kindergarten right now, I think we'd all agree there's a number of kids in those classes that would more than benefit to what Melissa said, being in a full-day program. So again, to me, it's all about access, and I'd love to see every student have that opportunity.
I think bringing up choir and band is a good point because I have a grandson that's 6th grade this year, and it's a pain to go to school an hour early for band and choir. And I would imagine that's why the numbers went up, because it's just going to be part of the school day.
That's a good point.
Thank you to our principals, certainly my team, you know, as we have tried to envision this for a couple years and, you know, coming to this conclusion most recently that, again, no new staff. I think that's the important piece. That's what really the vision, the looking at the data that we saw is that we didn't have to add new staff. And then, Doug, what can it look like? Can we make it happen? And so, again, we know the academic importance. We know the human resources piece. We have that piece. It's just, you know, getting, I guess, really Doug's blessing. And yours, of course. But again, it's just been a vision for a couple years, if not longer. I'm sure, you know, Bob Farrell probably had the same idea and had to go the tuition route.
And that's
so-
the whole point, is this same conversation occurred 15 years ago. Same conversation. The only difference is that you only got credit for half a student. There was no full student at that time. So tuition was the only way to get kids in the door on a daily basis.
Well, the
Just things have
landscape in
changed.
Ohio has changed drastically in
Yeah.
15 years. I
Correct.
mean, the increase of the voucher system, the decrease in the amount of state funds, you know, the increase of options, which again, to Emily Chestnut's point, if it's an option that you need, I fully support that, right? But the landscape has changed too, and we have to, you know, that's our job, is to monitor that and try to, you know, make the right decisions as the landscape changes, to adapt to it and try our best to get out in front of it, which I don't feel like districts always had to do. I mean, our district has done a good job at that, but I mean, there's just different challenges that we face today that we didn't face before, and a lot of uncertainty too, so. Well, questions, I mean, the people showed up, so, I mean, I'm all for answering questions. People want to raise their hand, and we can try to repeat the questions into the microphone to make sure that people that showed up here feel that we've asked the questions that the community would want to ask, and we'll try to give the best answer possible.
Kelly, thank you.
I'm
Just-
Diane Snow. I'm a community member, and I'm also a parent of a future high schooler. And I don't think there's any question about the benefits of all-day kindergarten. But my concern, and I haven't heard anything mentioned about this at all, is how the community will react. Your voters, those same voters who you've been telling over and over again, we don't have money. You cut our busing, and now you're telling us, oh, but we have money to do all-day kindergarten. And it really concerns me that if you do go that route, that the voters will be really turned off by that. And I was wondering how you guys, I didn't hear that addressed, so I would like that addressed.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking some of those financial questions, because I do think it's important. What I heard from you is that the situation is different than it was in December because of all the things that you talked about, with the state counting for a full student, us looking at enrollment, staffing, cutting the bus routes. Like, this is an opportunity that we can take care of this financially, where we couldn't, like, bring back busing or something like that, because there are so many different things about that decision. Is that correct?
Sure. I think the way to view this is, number one, we didn't know about the governor's proposal, taking away the guarantee.
But he's taken that, an argument on the devil's advocate of that is currently that's off the table, though.
Currently off the table. 2 years from now, it's back on the table.
Right, yeah, right. So we
So-
just want to make sure that we're,
When I opened up, I wanted everyone to know that no matter which scenario, it's a negative impact, meaning financially speaking, you're not making money, you're losing money. So it's either, are you losing this amount of money, this amount of money, or this amount of money? But I don't want this to be about that. I want this to be about educating the kids. So in a way, what you're trying to do is say, okay, we're losing money. How to, we don't make anything, we don't sell anything, but how do we create a scenario where moving forward, we're not only educating kids, which is what we're here to do, we're making sure that we don't lose as much money without raising tuition higher than $5,000. The problem with raising tuition, we discussed it, is enrollment's going to continue to go down, which affects our fair school funding plan, or eventually the guarantee, whether we're on it or not, and delinquencies, non-payment, waivers, whatever you want to call it, are going to go up. So you're taking a hit right there. I believe the only way to look at this is to move forward and say, okay, even $5,000 is not enough. But if we could roll back the $5,000, show the state that we're making improvements as far as ADM, that's only going to help us a couple years from now.
you have to explain what ADM is.
ADM, average daily membership. It's your enrollment.
Butts and seats.
Butts and seats. It's your butts and seats. So this is all about butts and seats right now. People are laughing, I know, but that's what it is. That's how the Fair School Funding Plan is now designed. They're paying you on your number of students that you're educating. The two variables that come into play are your property values. By the way, Claremont County had the highest increase in property values in the state in 2023, and income. That's also high. When those go up and your enrollment goes down, the state will not give you any more money.
But we don't get any more money because of those going up.
Well, as long as enrollment's going up, that will help us from getting less money.
Yeah, it'll help us from getting less money, but
Yes.
it doesn't, it's always good to point that out, because some people in the community believe that when you say something like our property values are the highest in the state, or very high, our income is going up, they think, well, then surely the school district's getting more money. But
Correct.
because of House Bill, what is it,
920.
920, we don't. So I just want to put that in
And so
perspective.
that everyone understands what that means is, we've been lucky, there's a certain amount of millage that's been passed, that's the amount of money we get. When your property value goes up, there's something called effective rates, they just go down, so you get the same amount of money.
Yeah.
If a new subdivision comes in,
The new subdivision
goes
comes in, you actually don't get credit for those homes until they're evaluated. And once they're evaluated, then everyone else's taxes go down because theirs go up.
So-
I would say one of the comparisons to think about, so transportation is very one-to-one. We cut busing, we save $500,000. Like one-to-one, we can see that, we can feel it. When we talk about this, it's a whole bunch of factors. So tonight, I heard, and I even heard some new ones tonight, but we're talking about retention across 13 years. We're talking about additional support, Mrs. Will brought this up, to catch those students up until third grade. So we have all of these extra reading aids. We have lost opportunities, like Mr. Wilson said, for students. So it's not as easy to say, do this, I mean, there is a number associated to it, but it's not the only number. It's a very holistic picture. And so we're here to do what's best for students and give them the opportunities. And so I personally feel when you roll all of these things together, that it's a pretty clear how do we get all these students here.
Yeah. And for her question, like, this is something I'd like to see at our, I know we have our finance committee tomorrow, and then what I'd like to see for the board meeting is that, we know the savings are coming down from purchase services, so we save money there. We know that we're saving money with the local busing, but we do know that that's a negative impact on the community members, so it's hard to recognize the savings when you know it's a negative impact if you're somebody who has to drive your kid to the school. But to your point, Emily, it is a one-to-one savings to do it that way. We also have some retirements that have happened this year, and some people have taken early retirement, which help us in that salary and benefit category. We know that Doug is working with our ESC right now to help our employees look at their benefits more holistically in the way of their family structure, to see if there's ways that they can save on benefits, which in turn saves our school district in benefits. We do have the pay-to-play aspect that we changed, and we'll be monitoring how that's been responded to by our boosters, and also how our engagement in those sports have increased or decreased. So, there has been a lot of changes to save money that we need to look at and recognize to see how that's impacted, and then Doug will also be bringing the 5-year forecast forward that we can take a look at to see how this will be carried throughout. Because to me, what I'm trying to view is when we go back out to the public for a levy, whenever that might be, which might be next November. I think that the consistency in these changes in the way that this board is leading the district, that we'll be able to put a levy out there that is explained better than the last one. We'll know more about the biannual budget at that time. Well, we'll know exactly what it is at that time. We'll have already passed, and we can look at it that way. But the one thing that I think I've been at least steadfast in my time here is that we can't just, you can't just burn it all down because a levy hasn't passed twice, right? We still have to compete. We still have to deliver for the community. We still got to deliver for the kids, and so that although we do got to make tough decisions like busing and see how our community responds, we also can't, it's hard because we made the decision, the 27 to the 5,000s. We saw that we had to look at every, I guess let me also say that there's only so many ways that a district can save money, right? So we were kind of looking at all of them before. I think that some of them have garnered more savings than we would have predicted as well, right? So I think that there is an opportunity here to make, I only see this as an investment. I think that we're investing whether we have half day and $5,000 tuition, and we're investing if we do it this way. We just, some of it is offset by the $150,000 in busing, and there'll be other small offsets, and then the benefit of increased enrollment, but it really is an investment to try to compete and to do what's right for the community. So that would be my message to the community on kind of how we can make this decision, but hopefully we can kind of try to formulate that, and I can work with you in committee to try to do that, because that's the way I would like to see it, of like, what have our decisions yielded that we made already, and did it yield enough to kind of make an investment?
And I do think this is an investment. I think we were talking about an investment. Like you said, either way, we're going to lose. So we have to start talking about what's important to the district. I think we've heard from so many people, and the evidence backs it up, that all-day kindergarten is really, really important for student success. I think that what's really important for us in our community, though, is that when we make a decision like this, there's somewhere they can go and they can hear, like, these are all of the financial decisions that went into this, because we've been telling the public for 2 levy cycles that we're running out of money, and now it looks like we're expanding services and we suddenly came up with new money. And I know that, like, we've explained that that's not what it is. And I know that there are a lot of factors that went into even talking about this. So I think if there is a place where everybody can come and see, like, these are all the things that went into this, including the things about, like, we will not have to hire as many reading aides, and all of those considerations that go into it, I think are really, really important to be transparent to the public.
John, when you
Yes, ma'am.
first called about this, you were talking about some decisions like the retirements was that much money, the kindergarten money coming in would be
Yep.
more from the state, and saving on the busing, the midday routes, and it wasn't a wash, like, but it was very negligible, I think. I was wondering if maybe for next board meeting, you guys could share.
Well, the one thing that
that?
was determined was because of the guarantee that.
Yeah, the guarantee
Yeah.
kind of changes that number a bit, but what we can talk about is the 150. We can show that. We can show the 150. And then you will be at personnel tomorrow at that committee. There will be on there 3 potential retires, and then, or actually there's 4. One of them is going to be an efficiency that would save the district $100,000. And I think Jenny's also going to talk tomorrow a little bit more about what Michael talked about. It's EMS, which is the benefits that Jenny's been working with them through Swoosh,
Right.
with our partner in Swoosh, but also neighbor Kings. Year over year is saving $1 million, and so there's the potential for that. So I think the messaging is we will continue to be fiscally responsible. We will continue to find efficiencies where we can. And again, is this something this is what we do at Milford? Is this similar to art, music, and PE at the elementary? That's what we do. That's what we offer. We're not getting rid of that. And I think that this should be something as well. Looking at the slides up, 90.5% of families in Ohio, we are in the super minority of those that don't offer all-day kindergarten for our students.
I did, when I was doing research on this, there are pockets where everybody's tuition free, right? I mean, we are kind of on the outskirts of that, which, I think that we deserve a little ding for not doing better research on this when we raised it to 5,000. I think, I think that, we went from 2,700 to then trying to make money on the 5,000 aspect. And I think what we did was got too high to where it impacted. I think we just overshot, right? People were just finding other options.
No, I think the data would indicate that, as Doug said, the data indicated it's been before this.
Yeah.
It's before that, and so, the answer I think also comes where Doug, Treasurer Ackerman, says we should be charging $8,500 if you want to fully collect what it costs to do that. So, I don't think we overshot it, but I also, 38% the last 4 years. We're down 38% over the last 4 years. So I don't think this has to do with the 5,000 and overshooting
I guess I meant
it.
that we always learn to ask better questions. Like, I think if at the beginning of the year, I'm just speaking for myself at this point, right? Just saying, like, if I would have known enrollment had steadily been going down like that, I knew it was flat, but I didn't know how bad that is a significant drop year over year. So we probably could have anticipated going to 5,000 wouldn't exactly bring that in the other direction. But we were also researching all of our options. That's why I think bringing back some of those things that we talked about a minute ago to see where our savings have happened this year. Because the one number that I always look at is our deficit, right? Because that's what we constantly look at to see how far out we can go, right? So we're in deficit spending. So we always look at that deficit to see how far out we can go, right? That's what John Espy used to show us all the time, and it was when will we hit fiscal caution, that sort of stuff. So I think what would be important to see in the new 5-year forecast is that number, right? Is that number flat? Has that number gone down? Have we extended it through what we did this year? And then I think that will really give us an indication on, are we in a position to make an investment or not?
I think one thing we haven't emphasized enough is until this year, August 1, when the middle school will open, we had no chance of all-day kindergarten because we had schools that were like kids falling out the windows. Seipelt and Boyd have classes in closets. So it wasn't an option because there was nowhere to do that.
That's a
And
good
now
point,
we do
yeah.
have an option.
That's a real good point.
Thank you.
See, that's why I just talk until something really good comes, and then you drop it.
So we have a new 5-year forecast coming up this month that's going to be presented. Is this decision going to be reflected in that 5-year forecast?
No.
Okay.
Because we haven't voted on it yet, so it's not
Correct.
actually still a
Okay.
thought, still a glimmer in our eyes, right?
But I'm smiling.
Yep, a
Well,
big
I
glimmer.
know we had at least one more question. Oh, you sure?
Oh.
Okay, please.
I do want to bring it back to the busing. I don't know that it's actually been, I don't know if everyone else feels this way, but I
Here,
know
can we get,
been directly,
Just give you the mic, because it's being recorded, so that way people can hear your question.
I fully support the full day and I see all of it. I guess that aside, I've already had several people ask me, what about those high schoolers who can't get to school? So I am bringing it back to the busing, because if you are spending money towards anything, you're gonna get a lot of backlash. I fully believe that. As somebody who fully supported you guys through all of these levies and have tried my very best to keep up with this information, to feed it to our neighbors and anyone out there, I do believe you're gonna get a lot of backlash for this bus situation.
That's
High
a good point.
schoolers aren't gonna make it to school. And that's, I think, I don't know, Molly, is that what you were gonna agree with?
We're just gonna back it up, that I brought it up just
can you give her
personally.
just so people on the,
Sorry. And I support half-day, and I've been nothing but a comment, and I can actually speak candidly. I've explored, before my children started at Milford, I have a first grader, I explored the ed choice. I came from St. Elizabeth Seton, don't stone me. But
Glad you're
I
here.
love Milford schools, we believe in the Milford schools, and we pay the taxes to be here, but I will tell you that I brought this up because I'm also a half-dayer. Again, do not, please keep comments to yourself. I said to some friends, I think they're going to go all day. What am I going to do? And they said, they better not when we have kids that can't get to school. I mean, this is going to be, so I think just asking for transparency, if you lay it out, because I mean, I learned that we're looking at enrollment going down because of ed choice, and once you put those butts in other seats, they're not going to get out. So I will reiterate that information to my friends, but I think if you guys do it as well, it really will help.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and as for the busing, like, when we cut the busing, it was a large chunk of our budget. And so it's, as I'm understanding it, it's not like apples and oranges.
No.
And then we're also, since we will not have those half-day bus routes, that is giving us money to go towards this balance of the going to full-day kindergarten. Is that correct?
Sure.
Is there,
So there are other districts that have cut high school busing. Our students are going to make it. They're going to get to school. We're going to make sure they get to school. We're going to work with families, and the community in and of itself will work together to make sure that students get to school. So, I mean, we hear you, we recognize that. So, you know, that of course it's an impact. I think I'm not the treasurer, but I can tell you that $1 million plus compounding over time versus, I mean, I'm thinking more in terms of staffing. We're not adding staff. I mean, that's what we're in the people business. We hire people, and they pour into your children, and that's our largest expense. And so we're not adding staffing, and that's how we kind of got here. Was this idea that, oh, we can do this without adding more staff? So we're not going to make everyone happy, and if ultimately this is the decision that we go forth with, I think it's going to prove to make Milford school community, you know, a better place. I would also say that ed choice vouchers is not what's driving down our enrollment. I think it's 98% of those that take the vouchers were already either on or in parochial, et cetera. So it's not new folks necessarily going in. And you get outside of Claremont County going east, there really is no choice because there aren't 15 parochials, you know, elementary schools, et cetera, or high schools. And I briefly talked about that at the last board meeting, but we're not afraid of competition. We're good. Right. And the other piece too is having a good friend that sends their child to a parochial McNick. They raise their tuition by $1,000 because that's the minimum amount that, you know, approximately that you would get from Ed Choice. So,
Yeah, I think my part on the voucher is just making sure we stay as appealing as possible to
Yes.
the new families, right?
Yes,
So yeah,
absolutely.
you're 100% right on the numbers, and I just don't, you know, it just keeps coming at us. So it's just kind of that like that was a point. That's a good point to make about the numbers and the enrollment. It just I think that we have to be. Parker, is there a way we can do another survey to see on the high school busing, or is there a way that we can better understand that impact to make sure that we're far enough ahead of it now where I mean, we can't make a decision to bring it back, but we can, but we're not going to. I don't want to put that out there. I'm wondering if there's ways that we can make sure that families are finding a way to do it, or.
I'm just posing this question. I'm not sure that a survey is going to tell us anything except that people are really upset that they don't have busing.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would be more of something coming from the high school or, you know, from each building about
People generally
how can we, if you're struggling getting, you know, having ideas of getting your child to school, how can we help?
Yeah, that's a good
More
point.
so, an outreach.
Because we're usually tracking who's going to sign up for it anyways, right? Every year for busing. Before we got rid of busing, we had to make sure all the routes and we knew where to pick people up and everything like that.
Yep, and ridership, I believe, is about 30%, so we don't have full ridership anyway.
Okay, good. So we can at least consider that to make sure that we're.
Ish. 20?
Yeah, I completely agree.
40.
That's why
40%.
it's good to bring it up. It's good to talk through. It's good to make sure we have some sort of talk track. Even if we do make the decision and, yeah, everybody's not happy, we want to be able to make sure that our decision was backed by as much as we possibly can get.
And you know, I'll say I have 2 8th graders, so I'm looking for, you know, I've already reached out via text to some friends so that both the pay-to-play fees and the busing hits me doubly hard. And, you know, Emily also has an 8th grader headed that way too. So, you know, we as a board are all touched by these decisions we're making too. So we know what it's like and we see the numbers and, you know, we're kind of playing the balancing act and trying to form. But we really appreciate folks here learning, spreading, because I think you have to hear it 20 times before it sinks in. Like I still hear people ask me, I had somebody ask me yesterday, how do I vote on the Milford levy? And I was like, well, that's not today, but thank you. Hopefully you were gonna vote for it. But you know, so people are still just not informed because there's so much information coming. And so having all of us as a community share that is helpful.
All right. Well, anything else?
I feel like we're wrapping up our discussion. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss about this?
No, I'm good. I think that we've set a good foundation for
one more.
getting some more stuff. Oh, we got one more? Okay.
Kelly's getting her steps.
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, this isn't a for sure thing yet. This still has to be voted on and decided. Is there a timeline or a deadline on when this decision is going to go in effect?
I would
That's
guess
a good question.
next board meeting.
Well,
Talk about it.
you don't have to vote on it, but we can bring it to you Thursday. Next Thursday.
Yeah, so we have committees tomorrow, and committees range across a whole host of things. So we'll be able to discuss this a little bit, which those are open to the public, just I want to say that. So it
Even
doesn't-
though no one ever comes.
Nobody comes, but I just want to I don't want to say that so it doesn't sound like we're discussing things in private, but it's in committee. So we'll have tomorrow to discuss it more as a committee, and then, yeah, to John's point, we don't have to vote on it, but I mean, we will just because it's such a big decision.
Well, and sooner is better for our families because they need to make a decision yesterday on
Yeah, we
this.
really are trying to, at least in my own mind, of just trying, like I said earlier, like if we can make it earlier where people can make a decision for next year and not decide to do something different, or just get that ease that, you know, now they would have money back in their pocket, would be good. So So, yeah,
And
I
is
think that's
enrollment
everything.
still open for kindergarten if there are families?
Yes, I was just going to say that, thank you to Lisa and her team, Cindy and Sarah up front, and all the enrollment that happens in the data. They're on top of trends, and birth rates are down, et cetera. So, yes, we definitely want kids to enroll. We don't want, sometimes some of our principals can say, like, the bus goes by in August, and it's like, oh, I got to sign my kid up for kindergarten. And that happens.
No, sometimes they just jump on the bus.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're definitely open for those folks to enroll their students in kindergarten. We want them as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Spread
this
the
is
word.
just-
And just to add real fast another comment to kind of piggyback on the busing too, for someone who has a child who's going to be going to all-day kindergarten, there's a lot of parents out there that the busing affects, and I understand that, but there's also a lot of parents who are two household, full-time workers where busing doesn't even really take an effect because we have to go to work before busing is even picked up or even dropped off, and we might not have the support system to even have someone get a kid on and off. So they're doing the programs at school for the right at school, and that's very expensive too. So the fact that this is a possibility where you can get a free tuition, so that takes that financial burden off those parents who still have to pay for their kids to go before school and after school. Like half day is not an option for me because there's no way for me to get my kid at a half day. It has to be all day. So that's something that is very exciting. I can see both sides of it. When I was in school, we lost busing for a year, and I know what that's like. I was a middle schooler. I was a high schooler. It was very tough. But I know I've talked to a lot of other friends and community members who are very on the fence on, who they were going to Milford and have now switched or considering switching. So I do think that this is going to help, and it kind of starts at kindergarten because, like you said, if you get them at kindergarten, hopefully they'll stay, and that will increase the amount of kids.
Yeah. Get the mic, so, because it goes through the recording.
Yay, fun. So what are we doing to accommodate if anyone wants to keep their kid in a half day? How does that work?
They'll reach out to their building principal to
Okay.
make sure that they know, and then you can still come pick your child up for a half
And
day.
then will there be a half day at each school or just at certain schools, or does it depend on numbers?
It would be at each school. So
Okay.
it won't be a half-day program. It'll be a full-day program,
Okay.
and they'll only stay for half a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my understanding of that, the academic things would be in that half day.
Okay, that makes sense. Just because I think I saw a couple people commenting
Mhm.
online, like, I wanted my kid to have half day. How does that work? That's fine, whatever.
Hey,
Yeah.
my wife
Facebook.
wanted
That's
half
fine.
day too, so.
That's fine,
my-
whatever.
You're not alone.
The accommodations to be able to make everyone at least happy on the AM PM side is like just so wonderful. So I appreciate that, because to get a child prepared in 80-some days to, hey, guess what? You hate preschool and you only go 3 days. Now you're going every day, all day. See
Yeah.
you later. Was going to be an uphill battle. Would he probably eventually get used to it? Of course. But we will figure out what we're going to do, and I do appreciate that. Without taking
It's
away
AM.
from all
Is that what
day.
you're trying to tell me? Yeah, it's
Can
it's
they
all.
do like a 6-week like introduction to full day situation? I mean, we did that back in the 90s, but that was different.
Contact your building principal so that you know if it's approved, if it's AM or if it's PM. So we've got some difference. It could be different in each building.
I would maybe just come out and say that, like, if you are wanting half day, we can have a discussion about it. Just don't hardline people into full day in case they don't want to take it.
They'll they'll let us know.
If you care enough,
Yeah.
you kind of do your research and ask around, and you know, hey, let's just start it out. So I think people will but maybe, I
I don't know. Stuff I saw on Facebook.
really.
But also, Michael, I think the point you made like 20 minutes ago about being like, hey, maybe we should say that we made the best decision with the information that we had, but it maybe wasn't as full of a scope of information as we would have loved to have had, but also say that, like, we're making this information, we're pivoting now because we have the right people in place, i.e. Doug, and we can pivot and make these decisions that may come across as bullish, but there's a lot of research behind them. I think just admitting that, like, yeah, we may have maybe misstepped, but this is a better step.
Yeah.
I think, again, give people
I'm
a
okay
little
with that.
bit
I
of
gotta
an
interrupt you. I'm
admission,
okay with that, but we didn't make a mistake.
I know, but
But
that's.
so I won't say that.
I
We didn't
know.
make a mistake.
No, I would not say mistake. You made the best decision you had
We-
with
we
the
did.
information that you had. But people
Correct.
will, because people are black and white, will view that as mistake, not best decision
Sure.
with information. But I think admitting that goes like a phenomenally long way with people.
Yeah, I think it's always valuable to be able to make a different decision with more information. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that there's like all the stuff that we pointed out that we'll compile that with the benefits that have come from the decisions that we have made that will allow this decision to be made without so much negative impact on the finances, but a lot of impact on the community and the future for the kids and the competitiveness for the district. Mary
Now
Ann's
we know.
playing us off like that whatever the award show is. But yeah, no, we'll work through that. Thank you.
Okay, kind of a silly question, but do we have any public participation?
We do not. We do.
Okay, we will be dismissing to executive session. I just wanted to say our next regular board meeting is May 17th. It will be here in this building at 6:30. And when we go into executive session, we're not voting on anything.
I think it's May 15th, sorry, the 17th. It says 17th there, but I think it's actually the 15th.
May 15th.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
We will be adjourning from here, but we will not be making any decisions or having any discussion out here. So with that,
Do you say the purpose we're going into executive?
yes, so I would like a motion to withdraw into executive session to consider the purchase of property for public purposes.
So moved.
Second?
Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Will? Yes. Mrs. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.